Greetings and salutations, folks. Welcome to the FriesenPress webinar on making a memorable memoir. The focus of today is going to be walking through the process and thoughts around making a memoir. And after that, we're also going to offer a slew of writing and publishing and marketing tips and advice to help you tell your story and make your dream a reality. So welcome, everyone, to the webinar. My name is Jamie Olivier, and I'm a publishing consultant here with FriesenPress. This will be my 12th year here at FriesenPress, and I've worked on over 3,000 titles over those years. It's an amazing job. Like many folks who work at FriesenPress, I do come from a creative background. I was a professional stand-up comedian for many years. I also have a background in technology. So I really have an interesting kind of some insights to bring to the table when I talk with artists, and I have a very unique skill set. And I love working with authors and helping them publish their books to the world. It really helps put gas in my tank. A really great role to be in. And I'd like to introduce the moderator for our webinar, my colleague Brian. And Brian has been working with me for over a decade here at FriesenPress, and he'll be moderating the discussions and any kind of chats that you have or any questions you may have during the course of the webinar. So please pop any of your questions into the chat window as we go. We'll get to as many as we can, and those we can answer, we'll be following that up with emails and discussions afterwards. So if we can't get to everything today, no worries, we'll be following up a little bit later on. We'll also be emailing you with some follow-up resources from today's session, including the recording of the broadcast. So don't feel like you have to feverishly take notes, because we'll be following up with a lot of great resources for you. So relax and enjoy the show as we go through some of the issues and topics around making a memorable memoir. So here we go. So in today's memoir, we're going to go through some of the agenda. So we're going to be looking at what the big question many authors ask is, where do I start? So part of finding a memoir is really thinking about what is the right slice of life. Also identifying a compelling hook, really important aspect to memoirs. Determining your memoir's message. That's also a really important thing. Sometimes people can just write something, but there's actually important to have a message behind it. This is a really important thing. Establishing an emotional connection with your readers. Very, very important. You also want to convey your unique voice as an author, because people really want to get a sense that they're getting to know you. Very important, the universal resonance in a personal story. Also, does it have a self-help component? A lot of memoirs do tend to have kind of a self-help angle, depending on the experience that the author went through themselves. So, big question, why write a memoir? So, many aspiring memoirists spend years thinking about their story, and they never actually start to write it. They assume they need an extraordinary life, and they need more time and more experiences before they're ready. But the truth is that memoirs aren't reserved for celebrities and public figures. Everyday life contains stories, lessons, and relationships and experience worth preserving and sharing. So there's a ton of reasons to write a memoir, but 4 really stand out. Preserve your legacy. This is a really big one I've experienced over the years. Memoirs are focused on capturing a legacy, like family history or the story of recent ancestors who came from other places in the world, along with the struggles of what they went through. A very top of the mind in terms of why people write a memoir. Sharing what you've learned, and this could be with the sort of the self-help angle. Memoirs can be an excellent way to share your experience with others who are going through something similar. The experiences that may feel ordinary to you may offer insight and encouragement and inspiration to someone else. Readers often connect with memoirs because they recognize parts of their own lives in the author's journey. Capture memories, a really great way in this world of everything's digital, an excellent way to capture the memories. Over time, memories do fade, and the details become harder to recall. So writing a memoir helps preserve those moments while they're still vivid in your mind. Writing can put things into perspective too. It's really an interesting idea, kind of a yardstick of measuring your life. Memoirs can transform the author in many ways, cathartic and healing for many. Writing a memoir isn't just about documenting the past. It's also about an opportunity to reflect, uncover patterns, and better understand the experiences that have shaped your life. So one of the things we've done is, here's an example of some of the memoir covers that I've done over the years. Some are memoirs, some are biographies. One that really stands out in mind is the Good Luck Frenchie. So this may be sort of the ultimate trajectory for a lot of authors who are writing memoirs and autobiographies, because my story is so interesting, I think it could be made into a movie. So that's exactly what happened with Good Luck Frenchie. We published the memoir of Alain Olivier, not related to me, but his experience of being framed as a drug kingpin by the RCMP, a compelling story. The book came out, and then the movie came out. So it's currently streaming on Crave. You can see Target #1, starring Josh Arnett. Jim Gaffigan, actually the comedian, plays the bad guy. He's terrifying, also extremely funny in real life. So that's a great, the ultimate expression, I think, of many authors wanting their memoirs to be turned into movies, and we actually have experience behind that. It's also a great example of some of the nice covers we've built over the years for our authors. AI, in an age of AI, there's just so much information, there's endless content. People can, find anything on anything. And, there are things that technology and AI cannot replace, and that really is authentic human experience. The most memorable memoirs don't succeed necessarily because the author lived an extraordinary life. They succeed because they transform personal experiences into stories that meaningful, emotionally engaging, and relevant to readers. It's more than a collection of stories. It's a carefully shaped story that invites readers into a particular experience and helps them see something new about themselves. While every memoir is unique, the most successful ones tend to share a few common qualities. This is really important. They're focused rather than sprawling, emotionally. They're focused rather than sprawling, and they're more emotionally engaging rather than purely factual. And they reveal something universal through deeply personal stories that leave a lasting impression and that extend beyond the final page. These qualities aren't accidental too. They're developed through thoughtful choices about what story you tell, how to tell it, and who you're telling it for. Finding the right slice of life. So it's interesting that a lot of people don't understand the difference between a memoir and a biography. So a memoir is not a life story. It's really about a slice of life. In reality, the approach often produces something more close. If you want to chronicle your life, that's more of an autobiography. But a memoir is really more focused and explores a specific period in your life, a challenge, relationship, transformation, or question, rather than attempting to document every significant event that happened in your life. So really, a memoir is a focused part of your life that is engaging, and it just tells a specific story about you. Many first-time memoirists feel pressure to include so many details, and they're worried about leaving something out because the story will be incomplete. But readers are rarely looking for that level of detail. They're looking for meaning, insight, and an engaging narrative. The most memorable memoirs are often built around carefully selected slice of life rather than comprehensive record of one. So that's an important thing. What parts of your life are worth telling, and how can you put that together? When deciding what part of your life to focus on, look for those moments that changed you. Consider periods of conflict, growth, loss, discovery, resilience, or transformation. Ask yourself, what experience taught you something important about yourself or the world? The answer often reveals the heart of your memoir. A useful way to think about a memoir is not primarily about what happened, it's about what happened and why it matters. So once you understand that distinction, it becomes easier to identify which stories belong in the book and which ones can be left out. The selective approach also helps create a stronger narrative. Instead of moving mechanically through decades of events, the memoir can focus on experiences that best support its central theme and message. Every chapter should contribute to the larger story the author is trying to tell, right? So it's really about sculpting the material. The readers respond most strongly to carefully chosen stories that connect by common themes. The goal is not completeness, the goal is significance. The memoir becomes stronger when you give it, the memoir becomes stronger when you give yourself permission to let the stories go that don't serve the central narrative. So you have to be open to editing parts of the story. So the hook. So this is an aspect to the memoir which is so important because that's going to be so key to understand how you can write it. Once you understand the story you're trying to tell, the next step is identifying what makes the readers want to follow that journey. This is your hook. A hook is the source of curiosity, tension, conflict, or transformation that derives from the narrative forward. It gives readers a reason to keep reading and creates anticipation about what lies ahead. Many readers assume memoirs need dramatic events to be compelling, but in reality, readers are often drawn to stories because of the emotional or personal connections they raise. Examples might include, how do you rebuild after a loss? A very common theme. What happens when you leave behind everything familiar, right? Can a fractured relationship be repaired? And how do you find your identity after a major life change? Very key considerations when you're writing a memoir. The hook often emerges from a central question or challenge that remains unresolved at the beginning of the story. One effective approach is to identify the transformation at the heart of your memoir. Readers are naturally interested in change. They want to see how experiences shape people and what lessons emerge from those experiences. A strong hook also creates focus. It helps determine which stories belong in the memoir and which ones may be interesting, but ultimately may distract from the central narrative. So if you summarize your memoir in a single sentence that sparks curiosity, you are likely working on a strong hook. Understanding the message and theme. So one of the most important questions memoir writers can ask themselves is, why am I telling the story now? The answer often reveals the memoir's message. Many people have very interesting life experiences, but experiences don't alone necessarily make a compelling memoir. What really elevates is a collection of memories into what really elevates a collection of memories into a meaningful memoir is the ability to write and explore what those experiences meant and why they matter. A message is not a moral lesson too, so or a set of instructions for the readers. It's a deeper insight, realization, understanding, or a question that emerges from the experiences being explored. Again, readers aren't just interested in what happened, they're interested in what you learned or what changed, what challenged you and challenged your assumptions, and how your experience shaped the person you became. Many writers begin the story and discover the message as they write. Others begin with a message and then build a story around it. Either approach can work. In fact, it's common for memoirists to uncover the true meaning of their story only after they spend some time reflecting on the events and writing about them and about themselves. So here are some useful exercises to ask yourself about writing your memoir. What am I trying to understand? What realization emerged from this experience? What question does this story explore? Really important. These answers often point towards a deeper purpose of the memoir. For example, in her memoir, Four Funerals and a Wedding, Jill described a 17-month period in her life where she loses her husband, her sister, her mother, and her mother-in-law. The author describes the message as she wanted to communicate an understanding of what and why the cultural script surrounding grief is limiting, misleading, and often an impediment to healing. So it's really addressing a specific experience in her life. Closely connected to the message are themes. Themes are larger ideas and questions that run throughout a memoir. They provide a framework for understanding the story beneath the surface, and the events help the reader connect individual experiences to a broader human concerns. Common memoir themes can include identity, belonging, ambition, grief, and transformation. For example, a memoir about immigrating to a new country may explore themes of belonging and identity. A memoir about caring for an aging parent may explore themes of love, responsibility, loss, and acceptance. A memoir about overcoming adversity may explore resilience, courage, or personal growth. Themes give a memoir depth because they connect individual experiences to ideas readers recognize in their own lives. This is where a memoir begins to move beyond an autobiography. An autobiography often focuses on documenting what happened. A memoir seeks to understand why it mattered. Themes also create cohesion. They help writers decide which stories, scenes, and memories belong in the manuscript and which ones, however interesting, may distract from the larger narrative. When you're clear about your themes, you can evaluate every chapter by asking whether it contributes to a larger story or taking away from the story you're trying to tell. Understanding your themes can also help define your audience, a crucial consideration not only for writing, but eventually for publishing and marketing a memoir. Readers often are drawn to memoirs because of the themes they explore rather than the specific events. So someone may have never experienced your actual circumstances, but they may deeply connect with the themes of loss, perseverance, family conflict, identity, and personal transformation. This idea shifts the focus from the writer to the reader. While your memoir begins with your experiences, it ultimately succeeds when your readers can see something of themselves in the story. When writers understand the message and themes at heart of their memoir, they're better equipped to create that connection. They can write with greater focus, make stronger storytelling choices, and ensure the memoir resonates beyond their own personal experience. A clear message and strong thematic foundation act as a compass throughout the writing process. They guide you to include what to include and what to leave out, and they help you shape the story. Most importantly, they help transform a series of life events into a memoir that offers meaning not only for the writer, but for the reader as well. Establish the emotional connection. This is such a key thing when writing a memoir. Readers will forget dates, they'll forget locations, specific details, but they rarely forget how a story made them feel. This is why an emotional connection is one of the most defining characteristics of a memorable memoir. You really want to connect with your audience. Readers connect with an emotional truth, even if they have never experienced the exact circumstances described in your memoir. They can often relate to the underlying emotions of fear, love, hope, grief, uncertainty, and joy, shame, pride, resilience, disappointment, or longing. A reader may never have served in the military or immigrated to a new country, or started a business or cared for an aging parent, but they understand what it feels like to be afraid of failure, to experience loss, searching for belonging, or to face an uncertain future. These shared emotional experiences are often what create the strongest connections between the writer and the reader. When writing a memorable memoir, it's important to move beyond just describing events and explore the emotional experience behind them. It can be kind of a challenge depending on the experiences you've had. An early memoir draft might focus primarily on what happened. I moved to a new city, I started a new job, I struggled to fit in, blah, blah, blah. But readers are often more interested in what experiences feel like, why it was difficult, What were you afraid might happen? What did you stand to lose or gain? Or how did this experience change you? The emotional layer is what transforms a sequence of events into a meaningful story. As you revisit memories, try to place yourself back in the moment rather than writing only from the perspective of who you are today. Consider the thoughts, fears, hopes, and uncertainties you felt at the time. And you want to ask yourself these questions. What was I feeling in that moment? What was at stake? What did I fear losing? Uh, what did I hope would happen? Uh, what was I struggling to understand? Really key thoughts to think about as you're writing. These questions can often uncover the emotional heart of a scene. Embrace your unique voice. I was told many years ago, if you want to be unique, just be yourself. There's only one you. So a unique voice is really what often separates memorable memoirs from one that feels forgettable. Your voice is your personality of your writing, right? It's the unique combination of perspective, tone, language, attitude, and worldview that shapes how a story is told. Two writers can describe the same event and produce completely different memoirs because each brings a different voice to the page. So readers aren't simply interested in what happened, they're interested in how you experienced it and how you interpret it today. This is one of the key differences between a memoir and an autobiography. An autobiography focuses on documenting events. A memoir is more focused on making sense of those events through the author's perspective. Your interpretation, reflections, and observations are often just as important as the events themselves. Some memoirs are humorous. Others are reflective, conversational, poetic, or direct and raw. Some writers use wit to navigate difficult experiences, while others lean into vulnerability and introspection. But there is no single correct way to do it, right? The key is authenticity. Your voice doesn't come from trying to sound interesting. It comes from a very specific place of honesty. Readers are often drawn to memoirs because they feel that they're getting access to someone's genuine thoughts and experiences. The more authentically you show up on the page, the stronger the connection becomes. Voice develops through the choices a writer makes. What details did you notice? What moments do you linger on? What questions do you ask? What lessons do you draw from your experiences? These choices reveal your personality and help you distinguish your memoir from everyone else's. Many new writers try to sound like authors they admire. However, the most effective memoir allows the writer's natural voice to emerge. Writers can often tell when a voice feels forced or overly polished. What they connect with is honesty, the sense that a real person is speaking to them directly. A useful exercise is to imagine telling your story to a trusted friend. How would you naturally describe the events? What observations would you make? What details would stand out because of your perspective? Often, the language we use in conversation can help uncover a more authentic writing voice. So try that. Try to describe your story to a friend and see what comes to the top. Universal resonance. This is something that's absolutely key, which means that your memoir can have legs not only outside of Canada and the US, all over the world, because universal resonance is universal. So it's one of the greatest challenges in memoirs is creating a story that matters not only to you, but to the readers as well. The most memorable memoirs are ones that can achieve this from universal resonance from a personal story. So you hit those notes that resonate with people. While events can be highly personal, the themes and emotions extend beyond the author's individual experience. Readers may not have lived your life. They may not have shared your profession or background or location or circumstances, but they understand grief. They understand love. They understand failure, hope, uncertainty, belonging, ambition, and change. These shared human experiences create a connection. One helpful shift in perspective is to think about writing not simply about yourself, but for your readers. Think about your message, themes, and hook. And you ask yourself these questions. Why would someone else care about my story? What larger experience does this moment represent? What might readers take away from this journey? In many ways, memoir marketing begins long before publication. Writers who understand their audience while writing and drafting the manuscript are often in a better position to reach and resonate with their audience. So think about your audience even as you're writing. When you identify your universal themes at the heart of your memoir, you're not just strengthening your manuscript, you're also building a foundation for future readers. The most successful memoirs strike a balance between specificity and universality. These are deeply personal yet broadly relatable. They invite readers into a person's experience while helping them better understand their own. Kind of a mirror to see your own experience in someone else's experience. And that ultimately is what makes a memoir memorable. It begins with a personal story, but it leaves readers feeling connected to something larger than themselves. Really, really important. So that is the bulk of our presentation. And before we get to some questions and answers, I want to invite you all to either go to the link at publish.friesenpress.com/memoir to enter for a free editor's manuscript evaluation. So we offer this service where the editor would read your draft manuscript and provide feedback in a structured way. And this is also based on notes and insights from you as well. So you can also scan the QR code if you want, and that'll take you right to the link so you can enter the contest. So the editor's manuscript, a little bit more detail on that. So it's a complete read through of your manuscript. It'll be a minimum 5-page essay on it. They can talk about specific things, sort of a general read through or like a holistic overview of everything, or they can get very granular. And this is different from book coaching. This is a baseline read through of the manuscript along with details and objectives from the author. So excellent way to start. A lot of authors like to take this as a first step, take a baby step and get a professional editor's feedback on the manuscript. And there's nothing like seeing a professional editor marking up your manuscript. Along with recommendations on editorial support too as well. So next we are going to take some questions from the audience here. So my colleague Brian will be facilitating this. Hey Brian.
Hey everybody. Yeah, thank you so much, Jamie. Wanted to at first give you a shout out for not slipping up over memorable memoir. Any of the times you said it. Yeah, very difficult. I wouldn't have been able to do that. So just wanted to give you your flowers on that. Well, it was top of mind. Yeah, thanks so much, Jamie. We have a ton of questions here. Love to see the engagement. A lot of personal questions as well. So I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who reached out here. And there's a lot of, obviously, a memoir is a personal story. And there's maybe some heavy subjects that have kind of been alluded to and shared. So we'll try to treat these with care as we go and give you as much great info as we can. I did want to start on a bit of a lighter note. At the beginning of the presentation, Kai said that they wanted to see your stand-up routine, Jamie.
Yeah, I think it's available on YouTube. Yeah.
Well, that's news to me. I'm excited to see that as well. But let's get into the Q&A here. So sure. We'll start with Dion. And I know this comes up a fair bit. And honestly, maybe we can get out ahead of some of this by saying there are some things that lawyers will need to advise you on when it comes to speaking about your life. And we aren't lawyers and we can't provide legal advice in that manner. So with that kind of caveat out of the way, Dion asks about using real names. That seems to hinder me a bit, even though I know I can easily change names or attempt not to use any at all. Is there any advice there?
Yeah, there's some really good advice. Because the reader, think about the reader. The reader, the only time they would care about the names of the people is if they're celebrities or politicians or someone known. they only understand. So Bob, who's in your story, you don't need to name Bob. They just need to understand the role Bob plays, right? So change the name, and you'll alleviate a lot of headaches, because if you do publish a book and use someone's first and last name, that may be an issue. So just remember, the readers are what's important, and the readers don't care about specific names or details unless it is a celebrity. Otherwise, change the names. You'll be thankful. You don't want to leave any breadcrumbs for people if there's any potential litigation or issues, and that's really important. And of course, a lawyer would be able to give you more advice on that. In fact, I'll reiterate what Brian is saying. If you have any questions, you'd want to talk to a lawyer, because they'll be the ones that give you the right advice, because you may be able to describe something in your memoir in a way that won't expose you. Or if you do, you don't want to publish a book where you're exposed and open to legal challenges because of that. So talk to a lawyer if there's any issues. If you were kicked out of a job, or you were involved in some accident, or there's court cases, things like that, definitely talk to a lawyer first. Even get them to help you pull out what you need to take out of the story, so that you don't open yourself to lawsuits.
Yeah, great context-laden answer, Jamie. I wanted to mention too, this just came to mind for me, but writing under a pen name might be a choice for you as well. Not to say that that gives you carte blanche to use real names. That don't infer that from that at all. But for those situations where you want to live your truth, you want to share that story and share that message with others, that might be a way of doing that without leaving those breadcrumbs, as Jamie said. Yeah. Okay, we had a question here from Michael, and I think we had a few people asking about reducing content. So I know you touched on that, how memoirs are sort of a slice of life. It's a finite version, that kind of limiting the scope can help you maybe lose some of the things that are extraneous to that message, or that part of your life. Do you have any tips for reducing content? Maybe getting some of that context and outside input that might help you through that process.
Yeah, I think so. You can have some rules in mind when you're thinking about writing. Does this, what I'm writing, tell the reader more about myself, or progress the story forward, right? So the story, if it's a memoir, it would be about, oh, this is what happened. Okay, I worked in technology for years. Now I'm writing a memoir about my experiences, right? You'd want to basically just have the elements in the story that support that narrative. Oh, you also are a professional kayaker. That might be distracting, right? So if you want to have only the elements that you're writing support the specific narrative and theme of the memoir, and then let everything fall away. Maybe you can do another book on kayaking if you want. So basically, everything you write should tell the reader more about yourself, or progress the story forward, specifically with those themes that we're talking about.
Yeah, great stuff, Jamie. So I'm just going through here and prioritizing some different questions that we have. There's so many great ones. Here's a kind of basic formatting question for submitting a manuscript to FriesenPress. What is the preferred format for that? And as people are writing right now, and I did want to mention, I dropped a poll in and asked if people had started writing their memoir. 50% of you have started, or you're in the middle of doing that, so that's great. 18% are finished. We have 23 that hope to start soon, and there are 5% that aren't sure if they'll start. So maybe we can lower that down to 0% by the end of
Yeah, there you go.
this presentation. But I just wanted to mention that for context, for as we're going through here. But yes, preferred format for a manuscript for those who are still writing right now.
Absolutely. So one of the pitfalls some authors think about is they try to format their book while they're writing, and don't do that. So the tool of choice is Microsoft Word. If you have a Mac, you can have Microsoft Word for Mac, or you can write in Pages, and then you need to export it as a Word document. But to keep it simple, silly strategy is kind of what you want when you're writing. So don't try to format it. No hard returns inside paragraphs. So type, and when you're done your paragraph, then hit enter. Sometimes authors, when they do try to format a manuscript in Word, inadvertently add a bunch of white space. They hit the space bar and the tab bar to try to do that. But that stuff we actually have to go in there and remove. It's called complex white space. So make it easy on yourself. Just pick a font you like and have very, very simple formatting, and we'll turn it into a beautiful book.
Good stuff, Jamie. Keeping it super simple, even if you finish writing your manuscript, sometimes just copying and pasting that as plain text into a new document can solve some issues too. So I wanted to mention that.
That's right.
While I thought of it, I have a question here from Wendy, and this is a pretty specific one, but maybe
Sure.
there's going to be some universal application. That's one of the themes of our presentation today. My story is about generational trauma after a disappearance, which was kept secret and never discussed. Stumbled upon it about 50 years later. Question: if there is no answer for the disappearance, will readers be disappointed? I intend to focus on the search and its effect on the family over the years. Any thoughts on it?
I think that it's unresolved, so therefore it's be evergreen in a way, because if the story isn't resolved, that happens quite a lot in literature. We don't know what happened. They went off into the sunset or went off into the woods. We don't know. That is compelling because it begs potentially for a sequel, but it also begs that thought of life is temporary, and sometimes things just happen, right?
Yeah, and that deeper meaning of the search and finding peace with maybe some of that unresolvedness. There could be something with that too. But
Yeah,
I hope
absolutely.
I hope that helps, Wendy. That's a great question. Got a question here from Aroka. We actually have a few questions from Aroka. Um, and one was pertaining to themes. So is there a limit to the number of themes one can explore in a single memoir?
Well, that's a really great question, and I'd imagine, based on what I know about memoirs, is that you'd want to pick a theme rather than multiple themes. Because this is my life as a deep sea diver. This is my life as a psychologist. Maybe I'm both of those things. Maybe you can figure out a way to tie them together. But generally, you want a theme to stay a theme, and then you can address in other books those other themes. Because again, and again, everything's depends, because you may be able to craft a way that can make it all make sense. But generally, you want to have a specific theme and kind of stick to that. Because it might be confusing for the reader unless you somehow can craft a way to make that make sense. So it depends.
Yeah, and actually one of Aroka's secondary questions was using major or minor themes. So that might, you maybe are onto something with that too. You can have a
Yeah.
primary theme and
Mhm.
and some sub themes, if you will, with that. But and these are also things I'll mention too that an editor can help advise on. These are Jamie and I have been in the business for quite a while, but an editor is a very specialized skill too. So I just wanted to plug that in and some of the value that they can provide on projects like this.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. And most of our editors had their master's degree or PhD and come from the world of traditional publishing too. So a lot of our editors bring, decades of market experience, can even help you sort of position it in the market too.
100%. Well, that's a great segue actually into a question we have here from Gabriella. And I think it's something that you love speaking to, Jamie. So how important is an author platform today when acquiring memoirs, and what are the most effective ways for a first-time memoir author to build credibility before querying agents or publishers?
Well, if you can create a platform on Facebook or Instagram and get 20,000 followers, then that's awesome, because that'll actually set you up to even have a chance with traditional publishers. Because I've heard directly from authors that the publishers are looking for authors who have big social media followings, because they expect you to have a great book and an audience too. So it just gives you more options if you have a following, other than the boilerplate deal. Also, it's very challenging if you don't have 20 or 30,000 followers on Facebook or Instagram to get an audience with an agent or a publisher. Since the pandemic, they're extremely risk averse. So, and they have very, very specific content mandates. And if your round peg doesn't hit into their square hole, it doesn't work. So, but it never hurts to build a platform and think about your audience too. People under 40 are on Instagram, people over 40 are on Facebook, right? So it depends on who your audience. So if you think your audience readers are going to be over 40, you'll kind of probably want to focus on Facebook.
Yeah, and a great question, Gabriella. So thank you for asking it. We have done a webinar on marketing for new authors, for first-time authors. I believe that was September, October of last year. So that's on our YouTube if you're interested in that. We're going to be doing more marketing webinars as well. So just wanted to plug that while I had the chance to do so. Got a question here from Steve. It's a pretty specific question, but I do think that there's a universal component to it where they're wanting to know if your project is worth pursuing and how to know that. So Steve says, I've tried passing my memoir to friends and family for feedback. The only one who actually read it was my mom. Didn't really provide anything constructive. I thought the themes of abuse were pretty universal. I'm obviously biased. How can I know if this is worth pursuing? This happens, I think, to a lot of authors who are really close to a manuscript.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, beta readers, as you're attempting, are definitely a great way to go. Another option too is to, well, I'll just talk about friends. Friends are great. Sometimes they don't want to, if they don't like something, they'll want to humor you, or if they like something, they'll tell you, but you may not get the kind of unvarnished feedback you're looking for, right? So in that scenario, that's really where, in fact, what we're giving away, the editor's manuscript evaluation, is a really great place to start. A lot of authors who have these exact questions want to come to us and take a baby step and get a professional editor's feedback. I actually did a biography years ago, and the author was just going to publish for friends and family, and they didn't think anyone would care. And the editor read the initial draft, and the editor said, wow, you were in the right place at the right time. Like literally, this author was in all these seminal moments throughout history over the past 50 years. And they just thought, oh, well, whatever, no one's going to be interested in that. But the editor says, this is fantastic. You really have to publish this book. So the author did. And it was a combination of family saying, we think it's a really great book. And our editor saying, this is a really good book. And it's dealing with a lot of really interesting topics. So now they're published, right? So getting a professional, whether it's FriesenPress or any professional editor who can act as an unbiased set of eyeballs for you, that's really key. Because editors should only do one thing: make sure what you want the reader to get, they get, and nothing kind of gets lost in translation.
Yeah, great answer there, Jamie. Got a question here from Maria. And Maria asks, are memoirs more suited to going through a publishing company direct rather than self-publish or use tools like Amazon or Kindle or etc.? So I read that originally as using like a publishing services company versus doing it yourself on Amazon. So is there anything that, any sort of, what value do we provide to these?
Oh yeah, for sure. And we do, absolutely. Because one of the few things we actually offer a la carte is editing. So if you do want to publish through KDP or any of those other options, or even if you want to publish to a traditional publisher, it doesn't hurt to get an editor to read it and then provide feedback and maybe provide you with editorial support to really kind of get it into shape. And then you can publish wherever you want. So, and the beauty of working with FriesenPress, if you do work with us, we have zero rights on your material, right? So you could work for months with an editor, have all kinds of developmental support and copy editing and proofreading, and you don't even have to mention our editor at all, right? So it's just you got your book edited somewhere, but now it's professional. And then you can publish through KDP or those other avenues, but absolutely absolutely edit your book before you publish, because you do yourself a disservice and your readers too if it's not edited.
Yeah, and I think big picture too, if your name is on this thing, having a great cover, having a well-edited manuscript, that's your story. That's how you're presenting yourself to the world too. So making sure, we help you make sure all your T's are crossed and I's are dotted, literally and metaphorically. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and just to that note, we when we do editing, typically an editor, if you go through the whole process and we do substantive editing and proofreading, we can get the manuscript maybe 90 92% error-free, 93%. That's sort of industry standard. And that's kind of the best you'd be looking for. And that would be what you'd want to present to an agent or to publish on KDP or to publish through FriesenPress.
Got a question here from Emilienne. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. They were wondering about the ideal page count for a memoir. I know that's a little challenging to answer, but do you have any thoughts on that topic?
I sure do. Yeah. When books are, well, I'll just talk about FriesenPress for a minute. When you publish through FriesenPress, the price of your book is based on the number of pages and the physical size. Okay. So if it's 6x9, for example, say 190 pages, that works out to about 60,000 words. So you want your manuscript or your memoir to be between 60 and 90,000 words. And you don't want it larger than that because it'll make the book, hey, everyone's going to buy my buyer for my memoir and it's like $50. You know, no one will buy it. So you want to make sure, ideally 60,000 words is sort of ideal. And your memoir would be, I think it would, 6x9 at 190 pages would work up to about $24 for a paperback. So that's kind of the target you'd be going for. So don't make it much larger than 60-ish thousand words, or at the onset up to 90,000 words.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing, and you know you basically just highlighted the connection of art and commerce there. You know, you should be able to tell your story in full, however you feel you should, but keeping in mind the cost of that finished product is really important as well, for all the reasons Jamie mentioned. So definitely something to not lose sight of as you're writing.
It really helps with trimming things down, because you don't want to have, hey, my trip to here's a picture of my lunch I had today. You know, all that stuff should be gone. It should be very succinct, because you do your reader a big favor by having it as short and specific as possible, because it'll be engaging and you won't lose them.
Yeah, unless your memoir is about the best lunches you've ever had, I guess. But and I might read that. Got a question here. This is sort of on the FriesenPress webinar bingo card, and I hope I'm not setting you up for failure here, Jamie, but Michael asked about AI and using AI to evaluate your manuscript. It often comes up in these chats, almost any topic, but yeah, do you have any thoughts on that?
I sure do. Yeah. So the only thing that's a no-no is generative AI. And that's when you go to ChatGPT and say, write me a book on crocheting. And it does, right? That we completely reject that sort of stuff. And no one wants it. You won't even be able to, well, there's a good chance if you publish a book like that on Amazon, they'll just yank it, or in the future at some point. So think of AI like an assistant, right? That's the way to frame it. So Grammarly, Scrivener, there's all kinds of writing apps that use AI as support. Very helpful and very effective, but the AI is not writing it for you, right? Research, hey, I'm writing a nonfiction. What events in World War II happened on these dates and blah, 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 right? AI, does the research for you, spits it out. You probably want to validate it for sure, but it can do all that research for you. So think of it like a research team that you work with. And as long as it's not doing the final pass of writing, then it'd be okay. We'll actually flag when we do the manuscript valuation if we think AI's been involved in writing it, and we'll push back on that, because you really want to have, well, first of all, anyone can tell that it's written by AI, because there's methods to determine if AI has been used in the manuscript. So we'll flag stuff like that, and you'll want to rewrite it in your voice. Until robots start buying books, you need to have a human helping you with that last pass, right? So yeah, AI is okay, but think of it just as an assistant and not writing the book for you. And also be careful if you use it, if there's some sort of feature in the AI app where it does kind of a editorial pass and goes through everything and maybe does some tweaks, that will actually flag all our AI issues, right? So we'll say, hey, this looks like it was written by AI. So make sure the final version you provide to us has a human touch and doesn't really have any AI content, but the research and all that sort of stuff and the support, no problem with AI.
Yeah, I mean, tread lightly, tread carefully with that. Things are changing a lot right now with it. It seems to there's new guidelines and things like that seemingly every quarter. So just be very careful with all that.
Yeah. And also,
Yeah.
even when you're trying to market the book, one thing I've heard from influencers, if you want a professional book that's going to get traction, if you have any AI content on the cover, they won't even open the book or look at it. And so you lose all of those opportunities. So yeah, even with your cover design, you can mock up ideas with AI, but ultimately you want a real person doing the final version.
Yeah. I had a couple questions here about the broadcast itself, and we will be sending the broadcast out as a replay. If you're watching the replay right now, hello. But you can expect that in your inbox tomorrow, and it'll be up on our YouTube as well. So just wanted to mention that, Jamie and I can both talk quickly sometimes, so there's been a lot that we've covered today. So yeah, no worries there if you want to revisit anything we've chatted about. Got a question here from Judith. I think this was a little bit earlier, but Judith asked if we provide writing coaches, and thought that might be a good thing to talk about quickly, especially in relation to that segment that might still be writing or hasn't started yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so exciting. Because over the years, one of the common theme we've got from authors is that help, I'm writing my book, but help, right? And we couldn't do anything at that stage. But now we've offered a service, it's book coaching. So we have a roster of amazing book coaches who work with you one-on-one, right? So especially good for nonfiction titles, because you may have this giant miasma of content. The writing coach can help you identify the themes. They can help you start to carve and create that compass for your memoir. So that could be a really effective way to go to engage with a book coach. And we have 5, 10, and 20 session packages. If you're sort of at the early stages, you might want to think about the 20 stage. That would be like a year's worth of coaching to help you get the book to the point where you've got a manuscript that's suitable for editing and production, right? So that's a real excellent way to go, especially with nonfiction titles like memoirs and things. Like book coaches can be super helpful.
Yeah, awesome. I'm going to try to synthesize a few questions in here, but
Sure.
I had a lot of questions about photos, using photos within a book, how many are appropriate. Like, again, some of these things are a little bit hard to answer from like a universal perspective, but what are some things that people should consider when selecting or trying to go down the road of adding photos into their...
Well, the one thing to consider is you have to go to the point where you've got a book in hand, right? If you have color images inside your book, it's going to make the book almost twice the price, right? So if you want to have color images inside the book, it really has to really support the story and the narrative of the memoir, because it's going to push the price of the book up significantly, right? If you want to use black and white, that's fine. I would use only black and white images, and simple too. Simple black and white images can work. Also, it's possible to maybe do a mosaic for the cover. So if you have a whole bunch of pictures, this is kind of fun. A whole bunch of pictures of you. You can actually, there's an application, I've seen a bunch of them online, and it will turn all these pictures of you into a picture of you, all made up of mosaics, with little images of yourself. So there's all kinds of things you can do. But I guess the main thing is, if you want images inside the book, ideally black and white, but ideally no images, because and any images you can put on the cover, because again, it's going to push the price of the book up significantly, to the point where it may not be purchasable. So black and white images, if possible, or none. And think about images you can include on your cover. And just be mindful that if you do include images, it's going to have an effect on production price and then potentially the cost. Because if you have a larger page count because of photos, it'll push the price of the book up too.
Yeah, and on top of that, one thing that just popped in my mind was rights as well, making sure that you have the rights to the images, whether you took them yourself or a person who took them is able to give you permission to use those, because that's something
excellent point. Yeah,
first time authors sometimes, totally fair. You can overlook that. You get excited about using something like that in your book, and we have to be the wet blanket when we're in production to ask, can you use this? So
yeah. And so to that point, if you go to Google Images and then you select free usage, that still doesn't work. You have to actually go through a stock image. When authors work with FriesenPress, we work with Adobe stock images, so authors typically can access some stock images through Adobe stock images. So yeah, there's all kinds of ways to do it. But you want to think about, you can supply photography. That's really common for covers. Maybe a picture of yourself as a child, or you as a teenager, or something like that. And we can even mock up, and this is great, we can mock up a bunch of different options for cover design, and then you as the author want to show the different options to people and they'll help you pick the best cover.
Yeah, that's a great idea too. I really like the idea of incorporating some of those on the cover, the images you want to use in your cover, whether it's on the back cover or in the front. I think it's a really good idea. Yeah, I mean, we're getting close to the end here, folks. There was an absolute fire hose of questions, so I tried to get to as many as we can. Maybe we'll do this one from David. Feel free to keep them coming as we wrap up here. But David asks, is 30,000 words too short for a book? I think going back to the page count,
30,000
kind of thing.
30,000 words is about 100 pages-ish. The average number of words on a page is about 315, right? So yeah, so that's about, so how many pages did you say it was?
Well, he said 30,000 words.
Oh, 30,000 words. That 30,000 words. So 30,000 words works out to about 95 pages. So it's close, about 100 pages. And that's fine. Of Mice and Men, 100 pages.
Yeah, and maybe this is a good note to end on here too, but standardizing and all that, like making sure you have a marketable book at the end of it, it's all great, but especially for the 52% of you who are in the writing phase, try not to let that impede your story and how you're going about this, because you're expressing yourself. It might be your first time that you've been writing and writing about yourself. So let the creativity fly, and we can always come in. Our coaching or editing teams can help you. Take that chunk of marble you've created and chisel it down into a beautiful sculpture. That's sort of the process that we're used to here.
Yeah,
so,
and how we do that is really easy, because we provide developmental notes for the author. So if you write everything you can, like you don't want to edit like right at the beginning, just get all the content out, and then you can start editing right afterwards. So that's important. And our editors can write developmental notes for you. You would read those notes, and then you would make those changes and remove stuff, which is typically how developmental support happens. So yeah, we can help you reduce your word count, no problem.
And just as we wrap up here, Adrienne, I'm in Ontario. Is it still possible to work with you? Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
We work remotely.
Yeah.
So we work remotely over email, phone, doing the project management and all that good stuff. So just wanted to mention that as we wrap up here. Thank you. I always see some very familiar names in the Q&A. So it's great to see so many of you back again. Really always get energized kind of seeing your questions and the things that you have concerns about, and hope we are able to answer as many as we could for you. Again, we'll be following up with you if we didn't get to your question today, so don't worry too much about that. Thank you for being here, and all the kind words that were in there too, Jamie. I'll pass those along to you about the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, if you want to send us off, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks so much, folks. I hope you enjoyed today's webinar, and tell your friends. And FriesenPress is definitely a great company to work with. So thanks again for your time. Truly appreciate it. And we'll be sending you all this information to your inbox. And thanks again. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody. Bye now.